BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to another Zodiac Killer Hoax open discussion that we have on this channel. You'll see that this is listed as part 3, but if you haven't heard parts 1 and 2 yet, that's fine. You can keep listening. We're just talking about the Zodiac Killer Hoax theory, although I would invite you to listen to those in the future if you haven't heard them yet. And yes, part 3, because I decided to do a part 3 because you guys had been leaving some excellent comments on the first 2 uploads that we did, parts 1 and 2. And the other reason for a third part in this segment was in part 2, we mentioned an article that was posted on ZodiacKillerFacts.com. And I said that more or less the article was not very helpful, if that is the most polite way of recapping the subject. But in reality, that is part of an 8-part series on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory that they had posted on ZodiacKillerFacts.com. It is done in 8 parts, and we only read off one of them. So I thought that could be another motivation to do a third part. We're going to go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Look at the other material that was posted on ZodiacKillerFacts.com, if anything, just to give them a fair shake in the subject. Let's hear more of the claims that they have made about the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. And if we could put the Zodiac Killer hoax theory into one sentence, we would say that the Zodiac Killer was an event that happened with real murders taking place in 1968 and 1969. And I said event because one person was taking credit for these murders, even though that person was not the killer, confessing to murders that he didn't commit. That was one sentence with commas and semicolons and conjunctions. But yes, someone was taking credit for murders that they did not commit via the letters, the phone calls, as well as some other things like the car door at Lake Berryessa, which we will explore in this discussion here. And the next thing I would like to say is now is a good time to always like and subscribe if you like what you hear, and if you want to continue listening to some things about the Zodiac Killers, serial killers, as well as other things here on this channel, please like and subscribe to Black Box Online Radio. Now, if I said that part 1 of this series on ZodiacKillerFacts.com was not very helpful, parts 2 and 3 are also not very helpful, and I don't mean to be harsh on that. It's really not until the 4th part of their discussion on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. They have 8 articles that are all linked together here. And the 4th one gets into more of how they're criticizing the Zodiac hoax theory as a conspiracy theory, just using the normal conspiracy theory model. If we had to say one good thing about some of the material that they have provided, it is that in the Zodiac Killer hoax theory, the prime suspect is an individual named Hal Snook as the writer of the letters. And Thomas Henry Horan, who is the author of The Myth of the Zodiac Killer, the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax, the primary guy behind all this, is saying that Hal Snook must have had access to the police reports because he was a Napa County deputy, and he was providing information that the real killer in these incidents, Lake Herman Road, 1968, Blue Rock Springs, 1969, he was providing information that the real killer couldn't have possibly known. So that meant that somebody had access to the police reports, and then they were writing in particular details. What they contributed from ZodiacKillerFacts.com is perhaps this happened because the Zodiac was not telling the truth. Think of all the times that the Zodiac perhaps did not tell the truth in the letters. Maybe it's something about, I have a giant bomb that is going to kill a bunch of kitties. If I don't see this note in your paper, I'm going to do something nasty. As well as perhaps confessing to other incidents such as the murder of Sherry Jo Bates or the Kathleen Johns incident on Highway Route 132. The Zodiac said a lot of things that were not true, and that is one thing that they have put forward. Perhaps the Zodiac was not telling the truth in all of the letters, so he didn't appear to be a coward, and I have thought about that thing absolutely. I mean, and one of the things that also shocked me going through these 8 articles is some of the points I'm in agreement with. However, I would also say that they aren't very strong points. It's very superficial. But I said that in the 4th part of this series, we get into the conspiracy theory angle. Let's just read a little bit from ZodiacKillerFacts.com. Once again, their hoax series part 4. In order to create this hoax narrative, Thomas Henry Horan needed a hoaxer and others to carry out the hoax, to commit the actual crimes and to resolve many of the problems with the hoax theory. Horan accuses former Napa police officer Hal Snook, who participated in the investigation of the stabbing at Lake Berryessa, that was September 27th, 1969. According to Horan, Snook's handwriting matches the writing in the Zodiac letters, thereby proving that Snook was the author and perpetrator of the hoax. Horan does not provide any credible evidence that Hal Snook wrote the Zodiac letters or that Snook was involved in any aspect of the alleged hoax. Now, if I can just go off of memory, I believe that Thomas Henry Horan has said in interviews that he has had multiple handwriting experts examine the Zodiac killer letters and comparing to Hal Snook's handwriting, and they're saying that 24 out of the 26 letters are a match, meaning that it's possible that two of the other letters are very different. And even in the video that was made by Evan from Texas, he did an excellent video on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. It was showing about how certain letters could have been written upside down. You would need superhuman patience to do that. I couldn't do that, but I'm not Hal Snook, and I'm not the author of the Zodiac letters. Like to turn the paper upside down and then write a letter like upside down, more or less, as well as other certain features of that. So, I mean, it really comes down to not only handwriting analysis, but also some other things that we will get to here. So I guess I would say that he has provided evidence, credible evidence, though. I mean, Zodiac Killer facts, whoever you are. This guy is not exactly being the clearest when it comes to the terms. Thomas Horan claims that Hal Snook wrote the first two Zodiac letters in July and August of 1969. The Napa Police Department was not directly involved in the investigation of the Zodiac crimes until the third attack at Lake Berryessa in September of 1969. And yes, a big thing about the Zodiac Killer mystery is the events really are taking place in different areas. I mean, we have the Paul Stein murder in Presidio Heights, Lake Berryessa in Napa County, and then we have Blue Rock Springs and Lake Herman Road. Like, they're really all over the map, more or less. Gareth Penn would tell us there's a very specific reason for that. Or even Robert Graysmith would say that there's a specific reason for that, saying these areas were chosen because of they were scouted out from Mount Diablo. There could be a variety of reasons for this. In his position with the Napa PD, Hal Snook had no reason to perpetrate any hoax, and doing so would create no benefit for himself or his department. In fact, a hoax would derail the investigation, waste man-hours and money on a fruitless search for a killer who never existed. As far as the motivation, Thomas Henry Horan has provided numerous motivations for this. Perhaps these articles are rather old. I do not believe that there is a date that has been posted on them. I mean, at least not on part 4 that I'm just looking at right now. But he said a couple things. Number one, Hal Snook was bitter about not getting his World War II medals, and that the Zodiac Killer letters and the ciphers, the mailing dates, correspond to events in Hal Snook's military career 25 years to the day. So someone is bitter about not receiving his physical World War II medals. He was supposed to get 4 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart, but when he tried to get the physical medals, then they said they had no record of that, even the Purple Heart. But there could be some other things, like communicating with a CIA operative in Southeast Asia named Tony Poe, Anthony Pashepny, and that is something that I don't even want to try and summarize right now, because I might make certain errors in some critical details of that. But the long story short is, Hal Snook could have been a CIA informant, not an operative, but an informant who was doing some a particular type of work that was trying to identify how Cambodian heroin could end up on the streets of San Francisco, or perhaps some other motivation. But it's possible that he could have been a CIA informant. There are a couple of different motivations have been laid out as to why somebody would want to put out these hoax letters, if indeed this is what happened. And the final motivation is gifted underachiever. And this is something that comes up time and time again in the Zodiac Killer mystery. No matter who you think the Zodiac Killer was, whether you think it was the hoax, the multiple killers theory, or a single perpetrator, people are just like, the Zodiac Killer was a gifted underachiever. The person writing the letters was someone of above average intelligence, but never felt they received the recognition that they deserved. And we talked about this once when we were analyzing the personality. It was a direct response to Todd Grande's channel, mind you, when he made the claim about the Zodiac Killer in his video, that the Zodiac was very low in neuroticism. Like, he wouldn't have been worrying a lot, but still very high in insecurity. And personality itself is a motivation to do something like this. And I think I don't want to get derailed from the articles already, but there is something that I would just like to contribute about that in terms of, like, is personality really like a large enough motivating factor for somebody to go out and perpetrate this? Well, some of the things that I learned from you in the comment section, I was saying you guys are sharing excellent comments, and that is to say that if we're going to look at somebody's like personality and just see how that they would have composed this, what is the type of mindset that is going to go into planning the Zodiac killer murders? And is it possible that this person is trying to recreate a story, recreate a 4-act play, recreate some type of comic book come to life where you're going to have 4 different canonical Zodiac crimes? Each one is going to have a different type of significance, and it was strategically planned. And Michael Butterfield, now's a good time to throw in that name, right, if we're going to be talking about some of this stuff, right? So what he has made the claim is just the Zodiac killer was not a sexually motivated serial killer. These were strategically planned thrill kills. I heard him say that in an interview once. So that's the reason why there wasn't this constant desire to go out and to murder prostitutes every Tuesday night if it were possible, because the Zodiac wasn't trying to satiate that type of sexual urge. Instead, these were calculated thrill kills. No matter what, if you say Hal Snook is writing the Zodiac letters and taking credit for it, that would be the same thing. And even when I was corresponding with Thomas Henry Horan and we were trying to compose a series of uploads on Hal Snook, it really comes out to be the same scenario. You would have somebody who feels like they are a gifted underachiever, as well as someone who is just trying to create some type of criminal masterpiece, and because they believe that they are more intelligent than other people, perhaps a Machiavellian narcissist. And to jump on here, Horan's theory depends on the unsubstantiated claim that Hal Snook wrote the Zodiac message on the car door and the Zodiac letters, but Horan offers no logical or plausible motive for Hal Snook or anyone else to engage in such a hoax. Well, I would have to push back against this one, and I don't endorse the Zodiac hoax theory. Just when somebody makes a sentence that you're like, hey, wait a second, is that really true? Thomas Horan has provided numerous explanations about how the message could have been on the car door. August 4th, 1969, the Vallejo Times-Herald, the letter and the Zodiac symbol was published. So the Zodiac symbol was published in print on August 4th of 69, as well as the letters were widely available. People could have practiced the handwriting, and someone could have tried to set this up in a particular way in which they made it look like the Zodiac killer, or they made it look like Hal Snook's handwriting in his theory. Or how about this? Let's get to the heart of the issue with the Lake Berryessa stabbing. Thomas Henry Horan's suspect in that is an individual named Dennis Land, who was the first park ranger on the scene, who found Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Ann Shepard after the victims were attacked at Lake Berryessa. The theory is that the park ranger left and then came back, and he was the first person on the scene. But one of the things about that is Hal Snook and Dennis Land were friends. They met at Napa Valley Junior College when Hal Snook was a teacher there, and then Hal Snook also owned a sporting goods store that Dennis Land would frequent, and they may have gone on hunting trips together, so he could have learned about this well in advance, and this could have been something that was strategically planned, is not necessarily about just some guy was reading the paper, I'm going to stage a crime and make it look like the Zodiac killer, as well as writing the dates of Zodiac activity on the car door. We're talking about Brian Hartnell's Carmen Gia, mind you. It doesn't really have to be the way that ZodiacKillerFacts.com is laying out this article here. But the other thing that I would just like to contribute is somebody left a comment, and I was going to use this in our next Zodiac Killer Q&A, which is going to come out the day after tomorrow to anyone who is listening to these live. But and if you're listening to this in the future, we do a monthly Zodiac Q&A. And somebody, let's just get to their comment now. They said, the Zodiac hoax theory is just a conspiracy theory. That's what they wrote. And what I have to say about that is, yes, I'm not going to disagree with you. I am not going to disagree with you at all, except for the fact that sometimes a conspiracy theory can turn out to be true. And I would just have to say that it's possible, or I would not be so dismissive of it. Yes, it is a conspiracy theory, but Countless times we'll find that conspiracy theories can be true. Going on to section 5 here, let's read something that they've written about Thomas Horan's theory. Thomas Horan named the ex-husband and alleged boyfriend of victim Darlene Ferrin as suspects in her murder. Ex-husband, of course, we're talking about Jim Phillips Crabtree. Thomas Horan has not presented any credible evidence that either man was involved in the murder or that they had any motive for killing Darlene Ferrin. The available police files contain no information which would lead any objective observer to conclude that these two men were responsible for the shooting at Blue Rock Springs Park. The available evidence indicates that the Zodiac remains the most logical suspect. And by Zodiac, they mean a single killer theory versus multiple killers theory. Now, if I recall, the evidence that would be put forward is that Thomas Horan claims that it was a sting operation that went wrong. I mean, and I'm not really going to be using his words for this, but it appears that Darlene Ferrin was somewhat of a confidential informant, and perhaps she was trying to set up Jim Phillips Crabtree so he would get busted, but then the sting operation backfired, or I don't want to put words in his mouth, as well as, without any type of transcript in front of me. If we're going to be reading off of ZodiacKillerFacts.com, I don't want to misstate certain things, but he has definitely addressed that. And, or very simply, there could be other things like possibly a drug deal gone wrong, and there was an individual named Donald Warren Porter that was present. But that is a very, very long-winded thing, and we have some other things to get to. It would take 7 or 8 minutes to go through the whole Blue Rock Springs thing. Going back to Lake Berryessa, though, this is in the same part. Thomas Horan mentions that Dennis Land and others as suspects in the stabbing at Lake Berryessa, but he has not presented any credible evidence to implicate them in the crime. Without such evidence, there is no reason to consider them suspects. The available evidence indicates that the Zodiac remains the most logical suspect. As far as Dennis Land being a suspect, I'm giving a shout out to YouTube user Jamie Hendrickson, who left the comment once when he said a similar variant of this. He made the statement that Thomas Horan has never stated why he thought Dennis Land was a suspect in the Lake Berryessa stabbing. The person wearing the Zodiac killer hood, approaching Brian and Cecilia, having this conversation about Deer Lodge Prison, I need money going to Mexico and such. He's never stated why he thought Dennis Land was the Lake Berryessa stabber. And my response to that was, there are 3 reasons that Thomas Horan has provided as to why Dennis Land could be the Lake Berryessa stabber. Number 1, he was under investigation for the murder. Number 2, it's possible he committed other murders. And number 3 is that, once again, he is an associate of Hal Snook. And what Jamie replied by saying is that I haven't seen anything that he was under investigation for any murder. And I kind of just let it slide for a while. I mean, we're going through some other things on the channel. And I was listening to the Stones Unturned podcast, Thomas Horan's show, and he made a comment about how certain pieces of the case file were withheld, and those were the pieces of evidence that would implicate Dennis Land in the murder. And eventually those did come out, and he did post those online, and I found them available online. You can find them on Google, about the quote-unquote pieces of evidence from the file that would indicate that Dennis Land would have been under investigation. And I have to confess to you, I am not good at reading police reports. I didn't really connect the dots, and I was just like, I don't get it. I didn't see the overwhelming piece of evidence like a smoking gun, more or less. But that is part of the theory in the Zodiac hoax setup, that the reason why the Paul Stine murder happened on October 11th of 69, roughly 2 weeks after the Lake Berryessa stabbing, is to provide Dennis Land with an alibi, because then it was like, oh, well, you're obviously not the Zodiac killer because of this, that, and the other. However, it's just, is that a substantial motive? See, a lot of the things, the way that they're writing this here on Zodiac Killer Facts is simply saying, okay, he might have an explanation, but is that evidence? He might be able to tell you what he is thinking, but is that evidence? However, it's kind of up to you guys in the comment section. Please drop any comments that you would like to share. And we have one more crime to talk about, and that would be the Paul Stine murder in Presidio Heights, as we said, October 11th of 69. Concerning the last Zodiac murder of cab driver Paul Stine in San Francisco, Horan mentions that cab drivers were robbed in the area. Cab drivers are often the victims of robbery, but there is no evidence connecting Stine's murder to any robberies. Here, I flat out disagree. Paul Stine's wallet was stolen. I mean, if that's not evidence, that is definitely tying it into some sort of cab robbery, the evidence indicates that Stein's murder was the work of an individual who sent a letter in an envelope containing a piece of Stein's bloody shirt. The writer of the Zodiac letters claimed to be responsible for the murders at Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, and Presidio Heights. However, Lake Berryessa is very, very loosely connected to the letters. The most likely explanation is that the individual who killed Stein sent the letter accompanied by the piece of Paul Stein's shirt, and according to the Zodiac hoax theory, someone else murdered Stein, and then a hoaxer, or hoaxers plural, took a piece of Paul Stein's shirt and created a fake Zodiac letter, for which falsely claimed responsibility for the murder. This hoax theory is not the most logical explanation for these events. And there's so many things here, like in this in these articles that we've even gone to, and these are just 2 parts here. And that is just that there's no evidence, nothing is credible. And it's almost so dismissive that it's not even giving it a fair shake. And one of the final points that I would like to say about ZodiacKillerFacts.com, if we're going to be critical of them for being too dismissive or simply saying, no, that's not what happened because it's more logical to think that it was a single perpetrator. That's more or less everything that we've said for the last 21 minutes has just been, okay, they're saying it was more logical to think that it was a single perpetrator, and I don't think that that's the best way to go about it. However, in parts 7 and 8, we finally get to that point that I said where I had a lot of agreement. They're like, this is not a hoax. I mean, first and foremost, we have real murders that are taking place. Secondarily, if you're going to have this setup where Dennis Land and Hal Snook have this type of connection, and that these things were planned, and that they are co-conspirators, or that even if Hal Snook is doing this, then he is guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in some way, then it's not a hoax. He is just the person who's behind it. And then you're going from 1 person to 2 people, and then 2 people to 3 people, because there are a couple variants of the 3 people things, like maybe someone else is making the phone calls. This is the Zodiac speaking. Maybe somebody else is writing the ciphers. So 2 people, 3, maybe 4. I mean, that's kind of the way they're laying out in these articles. I'm just kind of summarizing and trying to reiterate their points to save time so we don't read through 2 500-word articles in 5 minutes. But their point is just that, yeah, there are real murders happening. This is not a hoax. This is just a group murder theory, more or less. There was a real Zodiac killer. His name was Dennis Land in this theory. He put on the costume at Lake Berryessa, who could have written the message on the car door himself. Some of the other claims they talk about here on ZodiacKillerFacts.com is that it is implausible to think that Hal Snook would have arrived at the Lake Berryessa crime scene and written the message on the car door, like the Zodiac symbol, and then the dates of Zodiac activity, and then writing "buy knife" at the bottom. I mean, it could have been the perpetrator, the person wearing the mask, could have written that letter. I mean, like, and I'm saying that if we're going to entertain if in the hoax theory, Dennis Land could have practiced the handwriting and written that message himself. Although, I mean, I have to say there are certain differences between the Zodiac letters handwriting and the handwriting on the car door at Lake Berryessa, writing on paper versus writing on a metallic surface. But I would say, though, that the point we were in agreement with is that there was a real Zodiac killer, or there is a real Zodiac killer plot. And maybe Zodiac Killer Facts has shared that in a particular way. When they're saying that this is a Zodiac killer plot, you're just saying that there was more than one perpetrator. And one of the points that was mentioned in part 6 here is that why not just say that Hal Snook was the Zodiac killer? And, I mean, when Thomas Horan seems to reply to that question by simply saying there doesn't appear to be anything that would connect him to all of the crime scenes. But I think that in part 6 they were saying that that is even just something that would be a simpler narrative. However, I mean, it doesn't always have to be the simplest narrative. It might sound like a wacky conspiracy, but sometimes wacky conspiracies turn out to be true. And I know right now, as soon as I said that, maybe you're thinking of something that you originally thought was a wacky conspiracy theory, and then you're like, well, maybe it is true. I know that you've had those moments. I certainly have. But at this time, I would just like to ask, what do you think about the Zodiac killer hoax theory? What do you think about any of the claims that we've made and some of these challenges that have been put forward on ZodiacKillerFacts.com? Once again, they have an 8-part series of articles, 8 different articles dealing with different, what are attempts to be refutations and rebuttals to the Zodiac hoax theory that one person was writing letters taking credit for murders that he did not commit, possibly another person's writing the ciphers, possibly other people are making phone calls and alleged. But I would just like to ask you, what do you think about this? And please drop your responses in the comments section below. And some of the other things that we should say is that if you don't think that it was the hoax theory, what do you think happened? What do you think would be a better alternative than saying that one person is writing letters taking credit for murders that he did not commit? And the last question that I would ask you, do you agree with that assessment that the hoax theory is a real conspiracy to commit murder plot? Like, this is real conspiring. And there are real murders taking place, especially when you get to the murder of Cecilia Ann Shepard and the murder of Paul Stein. And the way I described it in the past was, it's like after July 4th of 1969, this hoax takes on a life of its own and becomes a real Zodiac killer. But what do you have to say about any of that? And I would love to hear your responses in the comments section below. And if you want to read these articles for yourself in their entirety, ZodiacKillerFacts.com, they have an 8-part series on the Zodiac hoax theory. That's all for me now, and until next time.